Yes! Yes!
What's going on, guys? This is Pseychie, and welcome to the first upload of 2023. I originally wanted to have this video out a while ago, but a lot of real life stuff happened, so here it is. But I will go into details of what I've been doing a bit later. So today we'll be taking a look at one of the newer weapons introduced into the game, the Peril Glyths. It is a tactics-only weapon that gets stronger the lower your health is. Unfortunately, I will get a copy of it in the second biome, as I was just tired of resetting, as this is custom mode, and I didn't lock out all the other ranged weapons, but I was just kinda tired of resetting since this is like my third time of just restarting the runs to see if there was a Peril Glyph in the 2, but there wasn't, so I guess we'll just stick with this for a while. So yeah, it is a tactics-only weapon, though I'm pretty sure when the pre-alpha was still out, the same update the weapon was introduced, the glyph also actually scale with survival, so I'm not sure why they took that out because I thought it was a pretty interesting thing to run in survival as well. But we're moving on to the second biome, and I have to apologize if my voice sounds a little bit different than usual. The main reason is because in early January, I caught the virus, for a lack of a better term. That's what I'm gonna call it. But I was essentially recovering for about a week. It was nothing serious, but it also meant that I just couldn't upload for an entire week. Not that I minded that much, since I wasn't planning on uploading too much in January anyways. But after the symptoms subsided, I still have a little cough, so that might be the reason why my voice sounds a little different. So we're gonna get the Peril Glyphs here. And this may have been a bad decision to take some of the health that I got in the first biome, and then of course I realized that the Peril Glyphs does not provide you with any hang time. So it means if you're firing the weapon in mid-air, some ranged weapons will actually allow you to stay in the air for a short time before you actually fall, but this doesn't seem to be the case with the Peril Glyphs, which is a little bit of a bummer. So as you can see, it fires I think up to 7 or so projectiles. You only get to see the first one if you're at full health, and then you get to see the final version of its combo when you're at around, I think 50%-ish health, so same thing as the frantic sword. So basically, the weapon is at its strongest if you have relatively little health. The only problem is, it takes a while until you get to the good parts of the combo, as you only start critting on the 3rd hit and onwards. And I think there was about 7 hits, and the last one will contain a fireball projectile. So I don't think I'm gonna showcase it here, as these enemies don't really take that long to kill anyways, and it's just a lot of investment to get the final fireball thing out. So in addition to having caught the virus, I also had to do a midterm project for school. And you know, it was just kind of, a lot of things were just happening at a really bad time. And that's kind of the reason why I couldn't upload earlier. I also wanted to get an upload out for the second anime channel. I review my top 5 anime of 2022, so if that's something you are interested, definitely give it a watch. But originally I was gonna take a small break for January, but the real reason why a lot of YouTubers take breaks in January is because the CPM, or the cost per mil value for their YouTube revenue, is the lowest in the year in January. I'm not sure why that's the case. Maybe it has something to do with just after the holidays or something. But essentially, your ad rates is the lowest in January. And in case you're wondering, it tends to be the highest in December, which is probably because of the holidays, where people are just buying stuff left and right. But I wanted to have some content out in January. I have expected them to drop the new Castlevania DLC in January, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But there's still like 10 days of January left, so they can always surprise me. We're gonna run into a close call here with a curse, but I was able to prevail, and I decided to take out throwable objects. I do think this is another possible way of running the item. So essentially in tactics, what you can do is just stun, and then just chip away at the enemy with whatever ranged weapons you got. Since something I noticed is that ranged weapons tend to have low breach. With a lot of ranged weapons, you are much less likely to be able to stun them with a series of attacks. Obviously, I do think this is balanced, as you can just pick them off from afar, but with the Peril Glyths, it does look like there is a little bit of breach, but there isn't that much of it. So in this case, just toss down the throwable object, and then just unleash your chain of attacks. Fortunately, this is a ranged weapon that does not contain ammo. I'm not sure how these weapons interact with a lot of the arrow mutations like Ripper, where you have to rip projectiles out, but in a second here, you'll see me get pretty lucky with challenge rips. I believe I'm gonna get like 2 or 3 in this run. Well, lucky in the sense that I get them, but also lucky in the sense that I actually see the rifts. I've seen a lot of you guys point out in the comments in some of my previous videos that I miss challenge rifts. These things happen. So a first impression of the Peril Glyths at this stage of the game is that I think it's okay. Its effectiveness really relies on a lot of factors. For one, you actually have to be low health, as if you don't crit, the damage is very subpar. The other thing is that you probably want some extra damage support, as I don't think just having the Peril Glyphs is enough to get you through some of the biomes this early into the game, especially not in the prison depths. Like overall, what I'm feeling with this weapon right now at this moment of the run is that it's okay. But as with a lot of weapons, my perception of them will change when we get to the late game. And just like a lot of other ranged weapons, I also find that the Peril Glyphs is a lot better if you have the piercing affix on it. But other than that, the rate of fire is good, the size of the projectiles are also pretty good assuming that you get the later parts of the combo. So against flying enemies, it's really not a problem at all. Just from the fact that it fires really quickly, it means that you can deal with a lot of things in a very responsive way. But one thing you do have to watch out for in tactics is your health. It's not exactly easy to manage your health in tactics. Obviously, you do need to have like around 50% health to be at a safe level of hit points, but also do the most amount of damage. And then here, I'm gonna do a 200 IQ move. Of course, that was done on purpose, where I purposely go into the spikes to let myself get hurt and activate the final crits, the ultimate version of the Peril Glyths. Obviously, that was on purpose and not a mistake. So the throwable objects combos really well with this, but I do find that the throwable objects needs to have the +3 ammo affix on it to make it really good, as you tend to run out of ammo pretty quickly if you only got 3 shots. I'm also pretty excited about the games that we are getting this year, the obvious one being the Castlevania DLC, but there is also Hades 2, which I believe is only releasing in early access for now, but I am excited to get into it. And there's also Silksong, which has now been teased for the billionth time, and I think they are confirming it will come out sometime before the summer, which is always nice. But if you ask me, I think a lot of games announcements as well as TV shows or movies is that I really prefer it if the announcements came like 6 or so months before the actual product is released. Because I really hate it when they announce something really cool and it's like, yeah, actually you have to wait 2 years before it's out. Because by that point, you know, it's kind of just, the hype for it has died down, and I think it just makes a lot more sense if you announce something and then release it in a reasonable time frame within that trailer or announcement. So one example of this is the Skyrim project called Skyblivion. It's basically like a reimagined remake of the 4th Elder Scrolls game, but made in Skyrim's engine. It has been announced since 2018, so it's been like 5 years. They just released a release year trailer, and it has been confirmed it will be released sometime before, get this, 2025. Now obviously I have no problems with people making a passion project. I'm really excited to see a lot of these projects come out, but I just would have really preferred it if they'd released the trailer within like half a year before the actual product is out. And another official example of this in anime is the new Attack on Titan season. So Attack on Titan is reaching its final season, and they really mean it for real this time, even though they have been releasing the final season for 3 years now. But essentially, the last 2 episodes of the series will be extra long, and they will be split into 2 cores. So the first episode comes out like in early 2023, and then the later one has not been announced, but people can probably assume it'll come in later this year. But the thing is, if you're going to call it a final season and then make like 3 parts out of that final season, why not just split it into more seasons? It's like you're almost doing it, you're almost calling it the final season just to farm up hype, which I definitely don't agree with, even though I do think Attack on Titan is a great show. Anyways, we're getting a little bit sidetracked here, but against Conjunctivius, I decided to bring throwable objects into the fight, and it's able to stun lock this boss. And as you can see, that was a flawless Conjunctivius fight. I'm also going to be showcasing another new item in this video, and that is the Diverse Deck. Now, I'm gonna play the deck in a very unique way. So in this case, what I wanted to do is that I just wanted the card to stay on Foresight, as this is probably one of the most powerful effects I've seen in the game. So Foresight allows you to negate the first instance of damage you take, and you get the cooldown every 5 seconds. So you'll probably see it a little briefly there, but there is a small icon above your head where it shows you that the invincibility is not enabled and you have to wait 5 seconds before you get it again. This is really powerful. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but just being able to negate damage altogether in this game is just one of the most powerful things you can have. So on 5EC specifically, especially with the tactics build, with the diverse deck just being on Foresight, what I'm able to do is to just stay at a comfortable health total while I can afford to make small mistakes here and there. It's absolutely amazing if you're running Glass Cannon, and in my opinion is probably better than every aspect of the Ice Armor. There's a reason why I think the Ice Armor is also one of the most powerful items in the game, just because being able to negate 1 instance of damage is really good. Now, unlike Ice Armor, the Foresight card allows you to get the effect every 5 seconds instead of 30 seconds, and it lasts indefinitely, unlike the Ice Armor. Now, I guess an argument could be said about Ice Armor because that item can actually freeze stuff when you activate it while Foresight cannot, but in my opinion, just having all of those upsides is a huge bonus to this item. And it almost makes me think that this item will get changed sometime in the future, because what's the point of using a diverse deck if you're just gonna use one of its cards? Like, Foresight, in my opinion, is just very, very overpowered. So yeah, in the graveyard biome, I was able to negate 1 instance of damage from a rat, but that is enough for me to stay on top of having the full combo of the Peril Glyths, while also being able to keep myself at around 50% health. Unfortunately, there is a hard cutoff at 50%, so even if you have like 51% health, then you don't get the final hit of the combo. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but sometimes that's just what you gotta do. But as you can see, in the late game, after having a comfortable amount of stats, I'm able to dish out some pretty incredible damage here. I am gonna store a shield inside my backpack just for a little bit of a backup plan against bosses, as stun just doesn't really work against the tier 2 and 3 bosses later on. But I will admit, it is very good against the first boss that you face. So I believe against Conjunctivius, against Concierge, maybe Mama Tick, you can stun them for a pretty extended period of time, and you could get in a lot of damage during that window. But it almost feels like a tradition that every single update will have one really broken combo or weapon that will pretty much break the game economy. If it's one thing I learned from web development, is that if your website has a flaw in its security, then hackers will try to exploit it. Just like in this game, if there is a broken strategy or weapon, then people are going to use it. So we're going to go into the Giant fight, and Giant really isn't putting up that much of a fight at all. With Tesla Coil, I'm able to essentially 2-cycle the Giant. So the poor Giant wasn't able to even land a single attack, which I'm sure is fair and balanced. So I'm going to modify my kit a little bit here. We're going to switch to Corrupted Power. Despite everything I said about Corrupted Power being nerfed, it's still very, very powerful. So you should still give it some credit. The damage boost that it provides is still very much significant. And as a support skill, you can pretty much pair it with anything. So it's still really, really good. As you can see, I did take a hit from Hand of the King here, but luckily Foresight was able to protect me from the hit. Now, in case you're wondering, no, if you get hit using Foresight, it still cancels out the no-hit later on. So unfortunately, you can't do any cheesy shenanigans where you try to flawless the boss even though you technically did get hit. which I think is a more than fair trade-off. Now, you could count this fight as a flawless even though it's really not, but I'm able to clear Hand of the King without losing any health. So yeah, from here on out, it's gonna be 5 BC content, and since we're at the end game, I decided to take one more defense measure so that I don't lose any more health, and that is gold plating. Now, if I'm gonna be honest, you take so much damage from the end game where even having like 50,000 gold is really enough to save you from like 3 or 4 hits. But being able to get away with like 3 or 4 mistakes in the final stages of the game is still pretty good. So I decided to ditch the shield inside my backpack, and I wanted to get it later when I'm ready to face the boss, but this is gonna be a fatal mistake, as having a shield inside your backpack actually means you get less invincibility whenever you get hit. It's the same thing as actually holding it inside your loadout, but the game still treats it as if you are holding a shield even if it's in the backpack. So it's a small thing that you can min-max, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. And then I'm gonna show you one more trick with Foresight now that you made it this far into the video. So I believe around this section of the Astrolab, I'm gonna get hit here, and then what you can do is to just go into your inventory and then just swap your skill slots around, and doing so will instantly refresh the invincibility from Foresight. So what you can do right now, at least in this version, is to just keep swapping around your skills whenever you get hit, and you basically have infinite invincibility. Now obviously this is gonna get patched, you're not supposed to be able to do this, but this is just the risk of designing such items that function so differently from your usual weapons. And as soon as I entered the door to the observatory, I realized that I forgot my shield. So, pretty big mistake. Unfortunately, I'll have to face the collector without a shield, and there's no way to get ammo for throwable objects, so it's pretty much a bricked item. And this is just one of the few things that's bad with throwable objects, is that it's essentially useless in endgame bosses. But I think in this case, Cryptic Power can probably get me through the run. So when he does the jab attack, I'm gonna be a little bit greedy and fire in small shots here and there, just to min-max the damage. And then he's gonna do the first heal, and yeah, things are going pretty well. Obviously, Cryptic Power is carrying the run right now, but in this room specifically, I was able to get like 3 shots back for the throwable objects, but it really doesn't matter. I'm gonna be using up those 3 shots pretty quickly, and it's not like the stun really interrupts the collector's attacks all that much. So I think with the meteor attack, I can interrupt like 1 or 2 of those, but again, once you run out of throwable object ammo, the weapon itself is dead. Like, I can't use the knives right now, it just doesn't work. But just like a lot of other tactics weapons, the damage really picks up when you approach the endgame. So just for a bit of closing words, I think the Peril Glyths is somewhere around like a or B tier, honestly. I don't think I've ever put it on a tier list, but this is just from my perspective after having gone through one run with it. Of course, I would think it will help if they made the weapon also scale with survival. I'm not sure why they stopped doing that, as I think that was a pretty good idea. I can definitely see a lot of interesting ways you can play the weapon if you're in survival, and then of course, I had a little bit of a brain fart. As you can see, I pretty much ate through all of the damage from gold plating, but I was able to clutch it out as disengagement is just a really good mutation. So overall, it's a pretty fun weapon. It's comparable to the frantic sword, but it's a ranged weapon. It's definitely strong, but you are gonna have to be at a pretty low health total for it to be good. Obviously, with Foresight, it's much easier to stay at that level. If they decide to nerf Foresight, then you can probably just run Ice Armor or something. But yeah, this has been the run. Hopefully I'll have a little bit more content out for January. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time.